I want to thank the Greenville Pitt Chamber for sponsoring this forum for us candidates. Let me tell you a little bit about me. I am originally from Kings Mountain, which is in Cleveland County. I was born and raised there. I came east to go to the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. I graduated there in 1992 with a bachelor's in political science. Can you hear me better now? All right. I stayed in Chapel Hill for law school, graduating in 1995. After I graduated law school, I moved to Raleigh, practiced law in Raleigh for 3 years, and I moved to Wilson in 1998 to practice law. But one thing I would like to let the folks here in Pitt County know, from 1998 to 2000, into 2000, early 2001, I actually lived here in Greenville. My then fiance, now wife, Jennifer, is a graduate of East Carolina, receiving her bachelor's degree in psychology, and she got a master's degree in psychology from East Carolina later on, and she works as a school psychologist in Wilson. And we have 2 daughters. One is 8. So East Carolina University has a special meaning to me because my wife graduated from here, but also because in 1991, I was appointed as the first student member of the UNC Board of Governors. In 1993, I was elected to a 4-year term on that board that my friend Henry Hinton serves on now. While I was there, I had an opportunity to spend time on this campus before I met my wife. And at that time, Chancellor Aiken and I became really close friends, and I'm proud to count him as one of my supporters in this campaign. But the University of North Carolina system is, in my opinion, as former President Spangler said, the single largest economic engine in this state. And I believe fully funding our university system and helping our professors and our research grants grow is a huge part of the reason why Greenville is what it is now. I am a moderate, centrist, middle-of-the-road, bipartisan Democrat. I believe in a woman's right to choose. I don't like tax increases. And I support the death penalty for the most intentional, heinous murders. But I believe protecting our but not at the expense of costing the business. So the things that if I get elected by you good folks here in Pitt County, and work party. I won't be someone that votes as a block person with the Democratic caucus. I mean, if I agree with an issue, I'll vote with them. If I disagree, I'll vote with the party in power. So I'm my own man. So I would appreciate your help and support. Thank you for letting me be here.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for the Chamber for hosting this. And it's a great honor to be in front of you today and such a great turnout. My name is Brian Brown. I am your current representative serving House District 9 in the North Carolina General Assembly. And it has truly been one of my greatest honors of my life to be able to do just that. I want to tell you a little bit about myself on a personal level today. I'm married to the beautiful and patient Rochelle Brown, who is in the audience today. Anytime I give a speech, I always have to say thank you to her because she truly is the one who does the yeoman's work, who allows me to go off every single day, leave our kids, leave our family, leave our business, leave our lives, and go and serve the people of Pitt County and Raleigh. And I know that she's the one that really does the hard work. We have 2 beautiful daughters. We have a 4-year-old named Brielle, who is in junior kindergarten at St. Peter's School, and we have a 10-month-old named Reagan. So as you can imagine, my wife's life is extremely busy when I am not around. You know, it was just 2 short years ago, not even really, that I stood before you and I asked for your vote. I promised you that I would go to Raleigh and I'd be a strong voice for Pitt County, that we would go to Raleigh and we would fight to transform this state, more business-friendly environment, reduce the regulations that our businesses have to deal with to provide a little more certainty and put our neighbors back to work. And I am so proud to stand before you today and say we did just that. You know, we went in and tackled tough issues: unemployment insurance reform, tax reform, regulatory reform, business tort reform, educational issues that our state faced. Many, many things. But none of those things compare to the things that I feel that I worked hard for right here in Pitt County. You know, when I took office in January of 2013, the unemployment rate in Pitt County was 10.1%. Upon completion of my first year in office, December 2013, the unemployment rate had dropped to 6.5%. Those are policies that are working right here in our own communities, putting our neighbors back to work. We fought hard for you as constituents when you came to me during the campaign process and immediately following being elected and said, please, 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 work to reduce the size of the Pitt County School Board. And we did just that in a bipartisan method in order to create a more efficient and effective school board. We face the challenges of trying to keep funding for the Walter B. Jones Center so that that at-risk population is able to do what they need to do. Save millions in funding for Vineland Medical Center and ECU. But we have a lot left to do. We need your help, we need your support to send me back to finish what we started, to protect the critical assets here in Pitt County, and to work to move beyond that. Deal with our infrastructure needs, deal with our educational needs. This is a great county and we're headed in the right direction, but we have to continue to fight. I look forward to the questions today so that we can really share the issues. Again, thank you for being here and God bless.
I want to thank you very much for this opportunity to present in front of you. Thank you, Chamber. Thank you for everybody taking the time out of your busy day. It really means a lot to me. My name is Ashley Blue. I am running for the House District 9 here in Pitt County. I'm originally from Newbern. I've lived in Eastern North Carolina my whole life, 36 years. I attended East Carolina University and graduated and decided to stay here. I had many opportunities to leave, but I believe in the people here in Pitt County. I have developed many businesses, so across many different industries. I have an acute focus on what we need here as job creation. We started out with Subway sandwich shops, later got into laundromats, developed some mental health facilities, and working with physicians. I see the need for reform with Medicaid and Medicaid enhancement. I'm definitely looking forward to getting up to Raleigh and being able to be your representative. My platform includes education, agriculture, and working with our natural resource management. In dealing with education, I feel like that is our backbone, our future. Our resource is our workforce, and we need educated, achieving, and engaged students coming out into society to help promote the well-being of our community. That will be a key point in bringing industry to our area. We need engaged workers. We need people that are out there striving to do better. In a time right now of entitlements and constant government handouts, we need to focus on that as being our main resource. Agriculture is still one of our #1 industries here in Pitt County. And not to forget East Carolina University. Of being a graduate, I would never turn my back on any type of funding or enhancements and make that a clear message in Raleigh. So many times Eastern 95 gets the short end of the stick, and it's not until we can form alliances with other county representatives to bring the awareness right here to Pitt County. Issues like the dental hospital, issues like the cancer center, issues like commercial fishing, recreational fishing, the catalysts that drive us as being the East. We need to work hard with having so many representatives between the 95 and 85 controlling the funding that we get here in Eastern North Carolina. And I look forward to representing you. Please vote May 6th, red, white, and blue. Thank you.
Mr. Bibbs, regarding jobs and business recruitment, what are your thoughts on the current North Carolina Department of Commerce and how the proposed public-private partnership will work? When do you expect the transition to be complete, and what do you plan to do with regard to the implementation of the new system?
Well, let me just say this about Department of Commerce. One of the things, and I worked closely with him in both of his campaigns after I got over the age of 18, one of my political heroes who lives in Wilson, Jim Hunt. Governor Hunt always said that the Department of Commerce was an economic engine for North Carolina, recruiting new jobs and new businesses, and that we had to create partnerships between government and business, not to create enemies between government and business. And I think the Department of Commerce under the current administration is doing an okay job, but I'm a Democrat, so I can't cheer them on too much. And I hope the implementation of what they're wanting to do will happen within the next 12 to 14 months so that North Carolina can get more jobs, so we can put people back to work, so hardworking families can pay their bills. And I would like to see the Department of Commerce help me, if I get elected, do something about Eastern North Carolina's biggest and worst problem. And that's this North Carolina Municipal Power Agency, Eastern Municipal Power Agency and electric cities. That debt burden and these high power bills are driving businesses out of business in both Wilson and Pitt counties. So I would hope the Chamber of Commerce would join me in trying to help figure out that problem too.
You know, Secretary Decker has done a great job with this. Great leader for our state in being able to streamline the Department of Commerce. You know, when you look at what took place in reorganizing the Department of Commerce, it was no small job. And there's still a lot left to do. In terms of implementation, we're hopeful that it will be implemented fully very quickly. But there's a lot of moving parts and components that still have to be dealt with. You know, but there's some things that we're struggling with here, particularly in our rural counties. You know, CBG grants are not moving, JDIG is not moving. A lot of the things that our communities and economic developers that have depended on for years and years, they're not moving as quickly as we need them to move. And as a legislature, we're trying to get that process streamlined and moved along as quickly as possible so we can get those funds moving again to our critical need areas. In terms of the public-private partnership, I think it's exactly what needs to be done. We have to leverage the resources that we have available to us, and that's business, and that's the public side of our government, really working together to make economic development a strong point. When you look at the proposed prosperity zones, it moves Pitt County out of what used to be the eastern region, an alliance with some southern counties, and moves us into the northeastern portion of our state. The northeastern portion of our state has been distressed and is struggling economically with jobs. That's what we need to focus on. And Pitt County has a great opportunity to be a leader and a great neighbor within that region to develop things and work hard to try to bring jobs into this distressed area. And I think the key to that is going to be working with across the state line up into Norfolk with the port, and really working to try to develop some of that business availability that is coming across the state line and make it more palatable for those folks to relocate to the northeastern portion of our state. We can only do that through this public-private partnership. So I'm extremely optimistic about the future ahead with the Department of Commerce and what they've done and what they're going to continue to do.
I think the public-private sector is an absolute need in eastern North Carolina, not only for business benefit, but for the tax base as well. Development with this could go as strong as working with education, building our vocational aspects of vocational high schools, pushing forward those engaged future employees. The public, this actually is not one of my biggest expertise, but I'm learning more about it. And as I do, I will definitely lend more of an open ear to it.
Our next question will begin with Mr. Brown. What strategies would you put into place to ensure K-12 education receives adequate and equitable funding? Do you feel that the current structure for increased teacher pay is fair, and will it help to recruit and retain teachers?
Funding is the biggest issue with K-12. We hear it day in and day out. But there's an important note to understand about K-12 education and funding in the state of North Carolina. North Carolina currently funds K-12 education as the 8th highest when you look at state funding head-to-head in the country. Where we fall off is county and federal funding. We're doing a lot. And in fact, this last General Assembly funded education at the highest level it's ever been funded before in the General Assembly. But there's still a lot of work to do. There's a lot of work to do in terms of making sure that funds are going in the right direction. You know, right now I'm actually chairing a working group that's looking into the education-based budget, something that's not been looked at in a very, very long time, some 634 pages. We've identified over $63 million line itemed as miscellaneous expenditures. Now, you know, as business folks, you wouldn't be able to have those sort of numbers line itemed as miscellaneous expenditures. Maybe they need to be there, maybe they need to be a part of the current budget cycle, but we don't know. What are they going for? Can we shift those dollars where it matters, which is back into the classrooms where it belongs? In terms of teacher salary, it's the right step to start with the first and starting teachers. You know, most of our teachers, 20 plus years, very low percentage of teachers are in that category. Most of our teachers fall in that 10-year category, and we're losing the majority of our teachers between years 1 and 5. So protecting that fundamental doorstep of teachers is the best thing to do. But we have to look at our veteran teachers, and for that matter, state employees as a whole. We need to focus on doing what's right for all of our state employees, but it's no short job. You know, I bet if I took a poll in this room today and asked you how many of you, without having a promotion, has received a significant raise in the last 5 years, and I bet hands would stay down. We're faced with fiscal issues in this state and in this country, but we have to do what's right for our teachers, and we have to do what's right for our state employees.
This is one of my expertise. In talking with many educators, what's going on since 2008 in not honoring contracts has been written. As many of you sign contracts, you're expected to fulfill those contracts. The General Assembly and what they have done in these last pay raises is shows us clearly that they don't understand education. Education is not a business. Education is not all about the bottom line. It is about being efficiently minded with your money, absolutely. But in dealing with teachers, this competition approach is doing nothing but tearing down and eroding our classrooms. Morale is at an all-time low, not only for our teachers, but for our students as well. This approach with teacher salary is not well received by the teachers at all. We need to go with an approach of a step approach where not only looking at a base salary increase, but each individual teacher deserves more in the fact of a 7th-year teacher deserves more than a 6-year teacher. That set of a hierarchy right there builds the aspiration of staying with us. We need to invoke the Teachers Fellows program and really look at Principal Fellows in order to bring our teachers here. That will be the key. Let's face it, these teachers did not do this for the money. They did it to become a viable part of our community, to present, what needs to be done in a specialized manner. Many of us are specialized in our industries. These teachers are just that. And so we need to honor them and be able to focus through them on our future with education.
The current one is, the way it's set up now, is not fair. I agree in part and disagree in part with both of my colleagues have said, and we're not in the same race, so if you're in their district, then you can vote for either one of them. If you're in my district, you vote for me or my opponent who's not here today. I've said this throughout my campaign. I'm a graduate of North Carolina's public schools from kindergarten through 12th grade, and as I told you already, the university system. I've never been to private school. Doesn't mean I don't support private schools. I think they serve a useful function. But irrespective of what you read or hear coming out of this current General Assembly, we rank toward the bottom in teacher pay, folks. There's no if, and, or but about that. And what the Republicans did this last session to teachers and eliminating teacher tenure was shameful, bordering on something that is civil violation of a contract law. Now, it's important for people to understand tenure, which I support restoration of, is not the same as tenure for university employees. It's career status. It's not a lifetime job. You can still be fired for a cause if you're a school teacher. But I think that what people need to understand, and like, for example, this last legislative session with the new tax reform package, I support tax reform, but I didn't support tax reform in the way they passed it. I support the elimination of the state individual income tax. So teachers form a very valuable service in our community, and as my economics professor in college taught us, this job is about opportunity cost, what you give up economically of one thing in order to get something else. You get a safety net, and that is what teachers signed on for, and they ought to be guaranteed that to be able to continue doing what they love to do, because they're sure not in it for the money. They give up the opportunity to be in the private sector, work for a Bank of America or Merrill Lynch, in order to teach our children, and that's the most important function we have, our greatest resource, our children. Thank you.
Our next question will begin with Mr. Blue. Southwest Bypass Project is a project which many consider to be important to Pitt County. Obviously, it's located primarily in District 24, but potentially could have impact throughout the county. The viability and timeline for completion of this project are in question due to the uncertainty of funding sources. If elected, do you plan to take any action during 2014 with regard to the Southwest Bypass project?
Absolutely. The flow of goods in and out of our area right here is at a bottleneck. There's no doubt about it. In working with the Southwest Bypass, I feel like it is something that's essential. We've been focusing too much on widening roads, Fire Tower Road being one of them. and overlooking the actual need. So yes, I would absolutely be in favor of doing everything possible to increase the awareness for the Southwest Bypass.
Well, in my last campaign, I was pleased to have the support of Greenville's mayor, Alan Thomas, as I do in this campaign. He and I have been friends since we were student government leaders together back in the 1990s. He and I talked about this project and fully funding it if I had gotten elected last time. So yes, I support it and would support it if I win this time.
Plan to try to take some action in 2013. This is one of the most critical projects that our county faces. In fact, one of the most critical projects our region faces. But it cannot be said enough to give credit to our local leaders who have really worked hard to try to initiate this project. Local mayors, Alan Thomas, Steve Tripp, those folks have really worked hard to do what's right for this project, and they need rewarded for that. When you look at what took place with transitioning our transportation funding formula, it was a much-needed process. The bottom line is we were building roads because we wanted to build roads, not necessarily because we needed to build roads. What we did was we took the politics out of funding roads. It's a great process, computer-driven model based upon needs versus wants. But here's the problem that exists. When you look at the Southwest Bypass as it stands today, it's about a $250 million project. It falls into the regional category. From a regional category, it's about $35 million a year. So what you're looking at is 100% of that regional funding, $35 million a year, over a course of multiple years, with no other projects being done in order to build that road. So what do? Well, again, those local leaders, they went out and they got creative. And they said, how can we find third-party financing that DOT will back so we can expedite this process and get this built as quickly as possible? I think it's going to be transformative for the state. I think it'll serve to be something that the rest of the state will look to as a best practice in how to expedite transportation needs for their regions. We will work to get this accomplished. In any legislative language that needs to be looked at and passed in the short session, we will do in the short session to try to get this project green-lighted as quickly as possible.
Our next question will begin with this goes. The unemployment rate in Pitt County was last reported at 6.5% in December of 2013. What is your current assessment of the job market in Pitt County? And what plans do you have to help generate job creation?
Well, as I said before, economic partnerships are the most important way to do this. Now, the unemployment rate is not just high in Pitt County, it's high in Wilson County too, and it's high all across eastern North Carolina. And I said before, and I'll say it again, and I'll keep saying it until I'm blue in the face, Ashley, that the region's largest economic problem is this electricity's mess. Now, I don't know how much everybody's power bill is in this room, but my power bill I just paid in Wilson last week was $937. $937, folks. Now, if you think about this, whether you own a Subway shop, whether you own a pizza shop, whether you own a clothing store, if your power bill is almost as much as your mortgage or your rent, you can't stay in business. We've got to find a way to solve this electricity's problem and find it now. It has been going on far too long. And the electricity CEO, and I understand there are CEOs in this room, his name is Graham Edwards. Now, I want to break some news to you folks. The electricity creates no jobs. They don't repair lines when the powers go out. They serve as an advisory agency to the North Carolina East Municipal Power Agency. His salary, his base salary is $550,000 a year to run a company that creates nothing, manufactures nothing, and absolutely does nothing to help us with this problem. And then he gets retention bonuses twice a year of 10% each. So that runs his annual salary up to $600,000 plus a housing allowance and a car allowance. Now, that is just wrong. If I get to the General Assembly, I want to cut electricities out, get rid of the NCEMPA, and get our power bill back down so we can create more jobs.
The unemployment rate dropping almost 4% in 1 year, that is such a significant move. And again, I go back to saying those are the policies that have been affected statewide that are moving that button in that right direction. Tax reform. I mean, you look at Boeing. Boeing was never thinking about coming to North Carolina until we passed tax reform. And then they started looking at Mecklenburg County. You're seeing larger employers start to look at North Carolina as a place to relocate their businesses. But in Pitt County specifically, we have a lot of opportunities to be able to bring new businesses in, but also to grow organically. So we do that in two ways. Number one, the Southwest Bypass, along with interstate designation for 264. When you talk to economic development consultants, their message is very clear. You guys are off the list before you're on the list because you don't have a means of getting the goods and products in and out of your county. That's a problem, and we need to address it. We've already started the process of interstate designation for 264. We'll continue that process, but that's a critical need. The other aspect is ensuring that we have a workforce-ready environment. You know, when I first started campaigning 2 years ago, I was astonished to know we were over 10% unemployment, but we had 200 available jobs out in our industrial park. Those are jobs that we couldn't fill because there's a skills gap. That brings me to my most important aspect that we fund as a state, which is our community college system, where we really work to promote a workforce-ready environment and get individuals ready to go out and get a job. These are the most important things that we need to continue here as a county to ensure that we put our neighbors back to work and allow new businesses to come into our community. And if we focus on those things, I promise you, we will continue to grow and prosper.
Well, as being a job creator and employing a lot of people, whether or not they're high school students or physicians or clinicians, the job market is growing, but I wanted to really attribute that to what Governor Pat McCrory did in stopping unemployment benefits, putting a stop to it. The General Assembly didn't have anything to do with it. It was Governor McCrory, first and foremost, stopping the benefits roll down the hill. My assessment of the jobs here in Pitt County, I do see a lot of vitality. I see the need not only from us as business leaders, needing employees and growing, but I also see with our educational aspects, we can, kindle that with our vocational, as I spoke before, high schools and getting engaged students with certificates and partnering with other industries here in Pitt County. I feel like that it is on the up and up, and we just need to keep stoking that fire to keep it burning. And so, thank you.
All right, next question, we'll begin with Mr. Brown. Beginning in 2016, North Carolina will require voters to show photo identification when they present to vote in person. Attorney General Eric Holder has sued both Texas and North Carolina for adopting voter ID laws. What is your perspective on requiring North Carolinians to provide photo identification at the polls? And do you perceive voter fraud to be a problem?
Before I address that, I do have to make a clarifying point. Unemployment insurance reform was enacted by the General Assembly. The governor cannot do those things. It was enacted through House Bill 4, primary sponsor Julia Howard, to stop the $2.5 billion of debt that was owed to the federal government, which would have resulted in increased penalties and fees for U.S. businesses. So the General Assembly did stop the unemployment insurance catastrophe that we faced. In terms of voter ID, it is absolutely essential. Of course, being a sitting member and there being pending litigation against this, there is only so much I can say about it. But I do favor it. And it goes a long way to protecting the integrity of the vote here in North Carolina. You can't go into a CVS and buy Sudafed without providing an ID. I think that we should be able to also protect the integrity of our vote by showing a photo ID when we go to the ballot to confirm that we are who we say we are. And I think the current numbers that just came out of the State Board of Elections will show you that there is voter fraud out there, and it has to be addressed. And I'm very thankful that we did that.
I perceive it, I'm all for it. I think I agree with the legislation 99%, that 1% being it should have been enacted a long time ago, and it shouldn't have been put off. I feel like there is and has been issues with voter fraud, and I'm just glad now that it's coming to the forefront.
Answer to your last question first. Do I perceive voter fraud to be a problem? No. The numbers which Brian was just talking about coming out shows about 58 people who were not who had voted twice or who didn't, or they voted for somebody else. We don't know exactly what happened. But to answer your question, this is where I disagree with the Republicans, and I do so in good conscience. It does make common sense to show an ID. It makes common sense when you have to show ID to cash a check or to get on an airplane. Those are things that are not rights guaranteed to you in the United States Constitution. The right to vote is essential. I think that the voter ID bill, which I would not have supported and would support the repeal of whenever the Democrats do take over again, hurts the elderly, minorities, and the unemployed. When you have to spend money to go get an ID, whether it's a driver's license or whatever, if you're unemployed, that little bit of money, maybe $10, $20, might be a whole lot of money, and it treats your citizens unfairly and unequally. And when we hurt our elderly, our unemployed, and our minority population, that is not common sense, folks. And that's something that I disagree with the Republicans on and would vote against if I'd have been there last time, and would vote to repeal if we get the majority back.
Thank you. Final question before we have our closing statements. Regarding economic development, what specific steps would you take to make Pitt County an attractive destination for new businesses and industry?
Well, I think that Pitt County's been perceived as a retirement villa versus a thriving business villa. I would work hard with our number one industry being farming to bring in industry to promote our biofuels and our ethanol glycol development, which would bring jobs of engineering and transportation. I would work with several other facets with education and like I said, with the trade schools. And working through those, I think that it would really bring some serious awareness to Pitt County.
Pitt County's largest single economic engine is East Carolina University, bar none. It employs more folks, brings more jobs, and brings more grants and more things to educate our children, our college students, and our graduate schools than anything else. And East Carolina needs to be fully funded by the General Assembly to help create more jobs. So now, I said I was going to keep saying this until I was blue in the face, Ashley. Getting rid of electricities and getting these utility bills down is the biggest problem that we have in all of Eastern North Carolina. So combine that with your largest economic engine when you can attract more people to come here because of East Carolina, whether they're moving here to bring their kids to school, whether they're coming here to work for the university, or whether they're coming here to go to school and for graduate school, med school, dental school, take your pick. You've got to focus on helping ECU grow. And it's not been fully funded. Henry, I'm sorry to say this, but the Board of Governors' latest budget just got vetoed by Art Pope, which means until they can come up with another budget proposal, and for 4 years I was a vice chairman of the Budget and Finance Committee for the Board of Governors. So I know how much money goes in to help this campus run. I have experience doing it. If I get to the General Assembly, I pledge to you now, I will make sure East Carolina is fully funded as an economic engine in Greenville.
First, I think Mark needs to quit brown-nosing with my opponent. Bad joke. There's three key things that we need to do for Pitt County. Number one,
I can't vote for either one of you, so.
Okay. Number one, infrastructure. We talked about it. But interstate designation is huge. The Southwest bypass is critical to getting on the site map for economic developers. The second is being able to leverage our current assets. With Vidant Medical Center and ECU, we're in the catbird seat to be able to really have some great development from a biotechnology standpoint. I mean, we're seeing great industry starting to relocate into this region, and you're seeing, from my perspective, when we go to Raleigh and we start to talk to some of these folks that are wanting to bring their biotech companies into North Carolina, they're looking at places like Greenville because the cost of living is low, the taxes are low, the property acquisition is low. We're primed for those things. But it goes beyond just leveraging those assets. We have to create additional assets. So I think one of the main things that we need to really support our local elected officials on and help them along with is doing things like developing our waterfront, bringing in more retail, bringing in more business that can support the lifestyle that these high-paying jobs and these biotechnology companies want to live and work and play with. It's critically important. But those are the things that we need to do to continue moving along, because I promise it's really positive things for Pitt County. I see it across the state all the time. We are truly one of those counties that people are looking at as a county that's going to explode.
I'd say thank you very much for this opportunity to be able to present with you. It is my very first chamber meeting, and I'm glad to be a member of the chamber now with multiple businesses. My biggest message getting across is education for our future of Pitt County. I think that with rekindling that, we can really build some serious buildings with the blocks of foundation that we need. Agriculture, I think, would benefit all of us across the board in reducing our dependency on foreign oil and looking at outside in, embracing other counties around us and their issues as well so that they can work with us to build the vitality of Pitt County. Thank you very much.
Mr. Brown, your closing statement.
I'm going to stand again if it's okay. I hate to sit and address a crowd. That was painful for me. I just want to thank each and every one of you for coming out today and listening to us about the issues. You know, campaigns can be difficult, and it's important to hear about the issues from your candidates. Guys, we've made a lot of progress in the last 12 months. We've got a lot of work still to do, and I really want to have your votes so we can go back and do what is needed for this county and for this state. You know, I think the most critical issue that we face is funding for East Carolina University here locally. Between UPL and SACA, I'm telling you, it is the difference between a university system that is in the black or that is in the red and causes closures and loss of jobs and loss of access to health care. It is critically important. This isn't a doomsday message. This is the reality that we're facing, the reality that I'm dealing with each and every day to ensure that we maintain those critical assets. There's a lot of great things going on in Pitt County. There's a lot of great things going across this state, but there is so much more work to do. And I promise you, if I have the honor to get through this primary and make it 50% of the way back to Raleigh, I will continue to be that strong voice that I promised you I would be last campaign, and I will continue to be the best representative that I can possibly be here in the region. I have to close with this because I think it's critically important. We face a lot of issues, Republican, Democrat, and the ideological spread is wide, I promise you. But I am so proud of this current Pitt County delegation that's made up of 3 Republicans and 2 Democrats. I say it at every speech that I go to. We had a lot of issues right here locally that we could have folded a tent on and had divisive talks with and really had issues passing. And we didn't do that. As a delegation, we stood together and we got those things done. In fact, to the point that a senator stood on the Senate floor and said, if other delegations across the state worked like the Pitt County delegation did, this entire state would be much better off. And that's true leadership. And we have to continue that leadership for this county, because it's not about me and it's not about you individually. It's about us as a collective group. I appreciate your support, and I hope for your vote on May 6th. We have signs, we have palm cards, we have information. Please check us out and figure out the issues. We appreciate it very much, and again, God bless.
Mr. Bibbs, your closing statement.
Thank you. Well, folks, I hope that I've showed you something today about that I know how to be a bipartisan, middle-of-the-road Democrat. A lot of the things the 3 of us have agreed on here today, a few things we disagreed on. But if any of you have been watching my TV commercials that have been running on WITN and WNCT and on Suddenlink, the slogan of my campaign is effective leadership. Folks, you got to send somebody to Raleigh to represent Pitt County who knows how to get things done, who can work with Republicans and Democrats, regardless of who's in the governor's mansion, regardless of who the majority party in the legislature is, and that's what I want to go to do. My opponent 2 years ago ranked 115th out of 120. When the latest rankings came out last week, she moved up 4 spots to 111, but she's still in the bottom 5%, unlike these gentlemen who are over 100. So, well, I'm sorry, Brian is. And I want to go there because I worked at the General Assembly when I was in college and law school. The Democrats had the majority then. I was special assistant to the Speaker of the House, Dan Blue. And I know where the bathroom is. I know how to get things done. I know how to deal with folks in bill drafting. And I'm a lawyer, and that's going to be very important this year as Jerry Cohen, the head of bill drafting, who's been head of research for almost 30 years, is leaving in August. So he has been an irreplaceable individual in the General Assembly for as long as I can remember, as long as I worked there. I understand how important it is to get things done, and I promise you, and I pledge you, if I get your vote and your support, that I will be an effective voice for Pitt County when the General Assembly convenes in January of next year. Thank you for having me here, and thank you for letting me speak with you.